Hello everyone, welcome back to this lecture series on chemical and physical equilibria. This is lecture number 17. In the last lecture I have discussed about how to find number of components of a system. Okay, I took various examples and I gave some clarity, right, on finding number of components. In this lecture I am going to introduce two important terms called intensive state and number of degrees of freedom. What is meant by intensive state and how to find number of degrees of freedom of a system, that we are going to discuss in this lecture. Okay, let's get into the lecture. Yeah. State variables of phase equilibrium. Listen, suppose assume that two or more phases exist in equilibrium. Now the question is how to define the state of a phase equilibrium, right? If you want to define, or if you want to describe, or if you want to specify the state of a phase equilibrium involving several phases and many chemical species, what we require? Okay, we require, or we need to specify temperature, pressure and the composition of each phase in the system. I repeat, if you want to describe the state of a phase equilibrium involving many phases and many chemical species, okay, what is required is we need to specify temperature, pressure and composition of each phase of the system. Okay, but this we know that suppose I'll take a system containing say for example three phases. So it's a closed system. I have three phases, say alpha phase, beta phase and gamma phase. Listen, the alpha phase and beta phase are separated by some boundary. This is not an adiabatic boundary. It is not adiabatic. It is not an adiabatic boundary. Okay, similarly this is not an adiabatic boundary. It means, see what I am trying to say, that if it is adiabatic, suppose if it is adiabatic, then temperature in the alpha phase and temperature in beta phase must be different, may be different. But what I am trying to say now is that the boundary that separates the two phases are not adiabatic boundaries. It means the temperature in alpha phase, the temperature in beta phase, the temperature in gamma phase, similarly pressure in alpha phase, pressure in beta phase, pressure in gamma phase, all are must be same. Okay, so temperature and pressure of each phase of the system, okay, must be same, right? So this is the first point I like to give here. So keep this in mind, right? See, in the earlier statement I gave, we need to specify temperature, pressure, composition for each and every phase. But now what I'm saying is that since the boundaries are not adiabatic, so temperature and pressure should be same in all the phases. Okay, so you need not worry about temperature and pressure for all the phases. Okay, just give what is the temperature of the system, what is the pressure of the system, that's all. Right, now we have to look upon this, the third term, that is composition. Is composition is same in each and every phase? Definitely not. Okay, see this example you might have seen in your physical chemistry practicals. That is, if you take the liquid mixtures carbon tetrachloride and water, right, CCl4 and water form two separate layers, they are immiscible. And if you put iodine, okay, maximum amount of iodine will dissolve in CCl4 layer and very small amount will dissolve in iodine in aqueous layer. Okay, so the amount of iodine in aqueous layer is very small, very small quantity is dissolved here. Similarly, the iodine in CCl4 layer is quite large. Okay, so the number of moles of iodine in CCl4 layer, the number of moles of iodine in aqueous layer are not same. So composition should be different. Yes, composition must differ from phase to phase. So composition is very important term that we have to look upon carefully. Okay, because temperature and pressure is same for all the phases, so you need not worry about that. Whereas composition never be same or need not be same in all the phases. Okay, that we have to look carefully, right? Then, so now I'm going to focus mainly on composition, right? Yeah. Now to describe composition of each species present in each and every phase, okay, we have two methods of describing composition. One is intensive composition term, right, and the second one is extensive composition term. Okay, let me give explanation for extensive composition term first. What is meant by extensive composition term? Okay, listen. Suppose I'll take CCl4 and water mixture in a container. Okay. Similarly, I'll take in another container, similar container, and I'll take similar amount of CCl4 and water. Okay. Here I'll put 1 gram of iodine, and in this I'll put 2 gram of iodine, just for understanding purpose. Listen, if I put 1 gram of iodine, the number of moles of iodine or mass of iodine, present in CCl4 layer of this container, I'll take this container as A, of the container A, I'll put A here. Similarly, number of moles of iodine, okay, present in CCl4 layer of this container, let us take this container as B, right? These two are not equal. Number of moles definitely not equal. The number of mole will differ. Okay, so mass, number of moles, these are all called, they are composition terms, but they are extensive composition term. Why they are extensive? Because if you add different amount of substance, okay, different number of moles will dissolve, okay, in each and every phase. Okay, so mass of substance, number of moles, we usually represent number of mole with the symbol N. Mass, number of moles, etc. These are all called extensive composition terms. Okay, now let me go to the next term called intensive composition term. What is intensive composition term? Okay, here I'll take some imaginary system. Say for example, I have a system containing two phases, say alpha phase and beta phase. Similarly, I'll take another container containing alpha phase and beta phase. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add two substances, say A and B. Okay, here also I'm going to add A and B. Let us represent this container as X and this container as Y. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 1 gram of A, 1 gram of B in this container, in this system, and here I'm going to add 2 gram of A and 2 gram of B to this system. Okay, if you mix it, some number of moles of A will dissolve in alpha phase, some number of moles of B will dissolve in alpha phase of container X. Okay, let me write this here. See, in container X, okay, some number of moles of A will dissolve in alpha phase. Okay, similarly, I'll represent this as X, and some number of moles of B will dissolve in alpha phase of the container X. Right? Similarly, if you take container Y, number of moles of A dissolve in alpha phase of container Y, number of moles of B that dissolves in alpha phase of container Y, okay, are represented like this. Definitely this quantity and this quantity are not same. Similarly, this quantity and this quantity are not same. Number of moles or extensive composition time, they differ. But if I take mole fraction, okay, we represent mole fraction by the symbol X. Okay, mole fraction of component A in the alpha phase, right, of container X, Similarly, mole fraction of component A in the alpha phase of container Y, these two are equal. I repeat, see, when you change the amount, okay, number of moles will change, but mole fraction doesn't change, right? Because mole fraction is nothing but number of moles of A divided by total number of moles present in that total number of moles of all the species present in the given phase. Okay, so even if you change the even if you dissolve different amount of substance, okay, mole fraction of component in each phase, that is mole fraction of component in alpha phase, that remains same. Okay, that's why, so that's the reason why we say that mole fraction is an intensive term. Mole fraction is an intensive term. Mole fraction and other concentration terms we can take. Okay, so in this lecture, in my lecture, I am going to use only the mole fraction term to define intensive composition of the system. Okay, so keep this in mind. You can describe composition in two ways. One is using extensive composition term, the other one is using intensive composition term. Okay, now so based on the extensive composition term and intensive composition term, we have two ways of describing the state of an equilibrium system. Okay, what are the ways? Number one, extensive state. Number two, intensive state. What is extensive state? What is mean by extensive state? See, if you specify temperature, pressure and number of moles of each and every chemical species present in each and every phase, okay, then that way of describing the system is what we call as extensive state. I repeat, if you want to describe or specify the state of a system at equilibrium, okay, using extensive state, you need to specify its temperature, pressure and number of moles of each species present in each and every phase. Okay, then what is meant by intensive state? Second one, intensive state. Suppose if you want to specify intensive state of a system, okay, what we have to do? You should take temperature, pressure of the system and mole fraction of each and every chemical species present in each and every phase. Okay, so if you take temperature, pressure, number of moles, and if you describe the state of system, it is called extensive state. If you take temperature, pressure and mole fractions of each species, and if you describe the state of a system, that way of describing the system is what we call as intensive state of the system. Okay, then so now you know what is extensive state and intensive state. Now the question is, for phase equilibrium, do we need to specify the state using both the extensive state and intensive state? No, not necessary. We are going to use only intensive state. Okay, so for phase equilibrium we need only intensive state. Why we need only intensive state? I'll give the answer here. Why intensive state is required? Why intensive state? We are going to use only intensive state. What's the reason? The reason is that, see, as I told you before, the condition for physical equilibrium, the condition for or criteria for phase equilibrium, the criteria for phase equilibrium is chemical potential of each species. Say I'll take some species 1 in alpha phase, the species 1 in beta phase, the chemical species 1 in gamma phase, right? So the chemical potential of the species should be same in all the phases. Okay, so this is the criteria for phase equilibrium that we know. Now listen, chemical potential is an intensive variable. Chemical potential is an intensive variable. Therefore, in order to describe the state of phase equilibrium, we require intensive state. Okay, we need to intensive variables, right? So we define the phase equilibrium or the state of phase equilibrium Therefore, state of phase equilibrium, EQM, I'll write shortly. The state of phase equilibrium can be defined using intensive state. Intensive state. What is intensive state? Okay, that is specifying temperature, pressure, and mole fraction of each species. Okay, so I'll put the species as C. Mole fraction of each component present in each phase. Okay, so if you specify these values, okay, it is nothing but we specify the state of the system at equilibrium. Okay, so keep this in mind. For phase equilibrium, we need to use only intensive state, not the extensive state. Okay, now, so before begin with, let me once again write this expression. This is the standard expression we are going to use. Okay, here this X represent mole fraction or amount to fraction, whatever maybe it is. The C represents component, and the P represent phase. Okay, yeah, so keep this in mind. Then now I'm going to define the term called degrees of freedom, also called variance. What is meant by degree of freedom? Degree of freedom of an equilibrium state, see, degree of freedom of an equilibrium state of a system is defined as the number of independent intensive variables. So we need to choose intensive variables. What are intensive variable? Temperature, pressure, and mole fraction of each chemical species present in each phase. Correct? So we need to identify number of independent intensive variables needed to specify its intensive state. Okay, that is what we call a degree of freedom. What is this? What I'm trying to say here? Listen. Suppose I'll take a system containing, say, 3 phases, say alpha phase, beta phase, and gamma phase. I told you already, since the boundaries are not adiabatic, temperature and pressure are same for all the phases. But composition, okay, of suppose I'll take 2 species here, say species 1 and species 2. Assume that 2 chemical species are present in all the phases. Right? Now mole fraction of species 1 in alpha phase, right? Mole fraction of species 1 in beta phase, mole fraction of species 1 in gamma phase, similarly mole fraction of species 2 in alpha phase, mole fraction of species 2 in beta phase, mole fraction of species 2 in gamma phase. So here we have 6 variables plus 2. Okay, so for this simple system you require 8 variables. Now do we need to specify all these variables? Is it required? No, not necessary, because these variables, right, may be related with one another. See, x1 may be related to x1 alpha, may be related to x1 beta by some means, by some equations. Okay, suppose if these two are equal, then we need not specify this one. Listen, observe carefully. Suppose if x1 alpha, if it is equal to x1 beta, if the 2 mole fractions are equal, then I need to specify only x1 alpha. I need not specify x1 beta, because if x1 alpha is known, automatically x1 beta is already known. Okay, so what we are going to do, if you want to describe, okay, the state of a system, do we need to specify all the variables available for the system? Okay, if you ask me, the answer is no. We need, okay, the least number of independent intensive variables, okay, to specify the state of the system. Right? So how to find out the least number? For this you need to identify how many equations which relate these variables that we need to identify. See what I'm trying to say? We need to identify the equations which relates, okay, these variables by some means. If we know that, then we can find out the least number of intensive variables required to describe the state. Okay, yeah. So I'll give you some clarity as we go along in this lecture. right? Now listen, to identify the minimum number of or the least number of independent intensive variables, okay, Willard Gibbs, he derived, okay, an equation called phase rule. Okay, this phase rule was given by Willard Gibbs to find the least number of independent intensive variables required to specify the state of the system. Okay, this least number of independent intensive variable is what we call as degrees of freedom, and we usually represent degrees of freedom with the symbol capital F. So according to phase rule, okay, which we are going to derive very shortly in the next lecture or in the forthcoming lectures, right? So what is phase rule? F is nothing but variance or degrees of freedom, also called the least number of independent intensive variables required to specify the state. F is equal to C minus P plus 2. C minus P plus 2, and this is what we call as phase rule. Where C, what is C? See, I am going to use with a little different symbol here, C independent. C independent means independent components, right? Independent components that is present in the system. In the last lecture, I discussed how to find number of independent components present in the system, and P is number of phases. P is number of phases. C independent is number of components or number of independent components, and this number 2, okay, is for the temperature and pressure variables. We know very well temperature and pressure variable should be same for all the phases. So you can simply add the temperature pressure variable as 2 and you can keep it as such. Okay, and this is the phase rule given by Willard Gibbs. Using this phase rule, we can very easily identify what is the least number of independent intensive variables, okay, that are needed to specify the state of a phase equilibrium. Okay, then now let me show you how to utilize this equation with a few examples. Yes, I'll give some illustration here. Let us consider a closed system containing say for example, I'll take a liquid and its vapor. Say for example, we'll take say ethanol. I'll take ethanol. So here we have ethanol vapor. So here I have liquid ethanol, and here I have ethanol vapor. Okay, assume that initially ethanol evaporates, okay, and you'll get vapor phase of ethanol. After some time, the vapor starts to condense and become liquid ethanol. Okay, you'll get an equilibrium. Now, once it reaches equilibrium, we need to specify or we need to identify how many independent intensive variable required to define the state. Okay, so what we have to do, first I'll find out number of phases. Yeah, here I have two phases. One is liquid phase and the other one is vapor phase. So number of phases equal to 2. And how many components are there? Listen, in this we have same component ethanol present in liquid phase as well as in vapor phase. So only one component is there. Therefore C is equal to 1 or C independent equal to 1. Okay, we can write C independent. Therefore, according to phase rule, F is equal to C independent. F is equal to C minus P plus 2. So 1 minus 2 plus 2, you'll get the answer as 1. You'll get the answer as 1. So what does it indicate? If you want to specify the state of this equilibrium, okay, you need to fix only one variable, right? Either temperature or pressure. Okay, so if you fix the temperature, right, automatically the pressure get fixed. Okay, so in order to define or in order to describe the state of this system, you need only one variable. So that is why this system is called univariant system. Univariant. Okay, now let us take another example. Let's consider, yeah, I'll take an example like this. suppose assume that I have liquid, full of liquid with a piece of ice or water. Okay, this is liquid water and this is ice. Okay, and assume that these two phases are in equilibrium. I have already told you, if ice cubes and liquid water, okay, are the only phases present in a system, and if these two phases are in equilibrium, then the amount of ice remains same and the amount of liquid water remains same. Okay, now at equilibrium, see here how many phases are there. One is liquid water, the other one is ice, solid ice. So number of phases is 2. And what about number of component? See, in the liquid phase as well as in the solid phase, we have same species. So number of component is 1, or number of independent component is 1. Therefore, if you use the formula, F is equal to C minus P plus 2, again you will get the answer as 1. So the system is again, this system is also an univariant system. Okay, then the next one, I'll take a system in which I'm going to take calcium carbonate solid. So this is solid calcium carbonate. Okay, and I'm going to heat it. If you heat calcium carbonate at high temperature, calcium carbonate will decompose and form calcium oxides. So now this solid has not only calcium carbonate, it also has calcium oxide, and carbon dioxide vapors are formed. Okay, so here we have an equilibrium reaction. See, initially we have calcium carbonate solid. On heating it, you will get calcium oxide solid and carbon dioxide gas. But since the system is a closed system, perfectly closed, the calcium oxide solid may combine with the carbon dioxide molecules, and you may get calcium, it is possible to get calcium carbonate. So the reaction will occur in the forward direction as well as in the backward direction. So after some time you will get an equilibrium. Okay, so listen, in this equilibrium, it is, so in this system we have chemical equilibrium. Whenever chemical equilibrium is present, okay, how to define the state, or how to specify the intensive variables. So what we have to do, we need to find number of phases here. Okay, so calcium carbonate, calcium oxide, they are two different solids. I have told you already, two different solids never form same phase. So it should be different, 2 plus, and here we have CO2 gas. So we have 3 phases here. Okay, I repeat, calcium carbonate, calcium oxide, though they are solids, two different solids, okay, they form separate phase. Therefore you have to count this as one phase, this is one phase, and CO2 gas is another phase. So totally we have 3 phases here. Then how to find out C independent? In the last lecture we have discussed this. Okay, those who are not familiar with this, you just go through the lecture once again and come back here and try to calculate the degrees of freedom. Okay, so in this case the C independent is equal to so we have 3 species, 3 minus 1, so number of independent system is, number of independent component is 2 in this case. Okay, then according to phase rule, F is equal to C minus P plus 2, so C is 2 minus 3 plus 2. Okay, so the answer is 1. So it means this is also a univariant system. This is also a univariant system. Okay, keep this in mind. Then next one. Now I'll take another example here. Let us consider a system containing liquid water. Here I have liquid water. Okay, and here I have water vapor, and I'll put a piece of ice cube. I'll put a piece of ice cube here. Now assume that all these 3 are in equilibrium. That is, liquid and solid is in equilibrium, solid and vapor is in equilibrium, and liquid and vapor also in equilibrium. So here this equilibrium exists. That is, H2O solid is in equilibrium with H2O liquid is in equilibrium with H2O vapor. all these three phases are in equilibrium now. Okay, so how many phases are there? There are three different phases: solid, liquid, gas. But in all the phases we have same species, so number of component is one independent component. Okay, and what is the degree of freedom? F is equal to C minus P plus 2. So the answer is 1. Again, see, this system is an univariant system. Okay, it is univariant, right? Yeah. So we have discussed a few examples with the univariant. We also have bivariant system, we also have trivariant system, right? Yeah. So it depends upon the system that you take. For example, I'll take another system containing say for example, I'll take an aqueous solution. It's full of aqueous solution where I have dissolved, say, sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is dissolved, so it is an aqueous sodium chloride solution. Aqueous sodium chloride solution. Now how to define the state of the system, or how many intensive variables required to define the state of the system? Okay, so we need to find out number of phases first. Since sodium chloride aqueous solution of sodium chloride gives you homogeneous mixture, so number of phase equal to 1 in this case. And what about number of component? Okay, last class I told you, so here we have three species: sodium ion, chloride ion, and water. We have three species. Okay, and sodium ion, chloride ion can be related by electrical neutrality phenomenon. You can relate these two, and you can relate the mole fraction of sodium ion and mole fraction of chloride ion. See what I am trying to say here. See, number of actual species present is 3, but to maintain electrical neutrality, number of moles of sodium ion and number of moles of chloride ion should be equal. Okay, and if you divide both the side by total number of moles, mole fraction of sodium ion and mole fraction of chloride ion are equal. I have told you already, okay, each mole fraction form a separate variable, but in this case these two mole fractions, okay, are related by an equation. They are equal now. So if I specify mole fraction of sodium ion, we need not specify mole fraction of chloride ion because they are equal. Okay, therefore the number of variable, okay, decreases by 1 in this case, right? So what is the number of independent variable in this case? Number of species 3 minus we have one equation here, so 3 minus 1, right, gives you the answer is 2. Okay, so number of independent chemical components or species present in the system is 2. So what is F? F is equal to C minus P plus 2. So in this case the answer is 3. So it is this system has this system requires three independent intensive variables, okay, required to specify the state of the physical equilibrium. Okay, so this is the method that we have to follow to find the number of or least number of independent intensive variables to specify the state of a phase equilibrium. Okay, yeah, I hope that you all get some clarity on this this topic, that is what is meant by intensive state and how to find degrees of freedom for a system. Okay, yeah, I stop here. Thank you for listening.